And this here is another viewer's broken gaming PC. Now, for those who are new to the Fix Your Flop playlist, what we do here is reach out to the local area, typically somewhere in and around Orlando, Florida. I meet with viewers who have broken systems. I pick up their systems, I bring them back to my house, and I attempt to fix them for free. I don't charge them a dime as long as they're okay with me filming the process in the meantime. Now, this particular computer was only built maybe 2 weeks ago. It's actually a fairly young build, and that is super unfortunate. The fact that the owner is already running into pretty serious issues. And I will tell you up front that they sound more software related than anything else, which means this one's going to be more than likely a PITA. I'm not gonna bother translating that acronym. I think most of you know what that stands for. PC-related software issues can send you down so many rabbit holes, it's not even funny. You can find yourself spending a week or more trying to troubleshoot a single issue that is either causing your PC not to turn on, or maybe to turn on and then immediately turn off, or blue screen over and over and over. And that was actually what was happening with this build until the system decided to just kick the can and not work anymore. So we're gonna figure out what exactly is wrong and hopefully fix it in this video. Stay with me. To get rid of that annoying activation watermark, hop on over to VIP SCD key and purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for fractions of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, receive your key in seconds, and activate your OS here. Bye-bye watermark. And be sure to use our new offer code SKGS for a sweet discount. Now, one of the more obvious issues I would say this build has is a lack of good cable management. I'm just gonna be blunt. I mean, come on. I'm not sure if he wasn't able to like route these cables around the back side of the motherboard tray or what. We've got one 8-pin PCIe supplemental cable running through the cutout for a front radiator, and then the other one is running through where it should be run. It's the cutout here, the rubber grommet cutout for PCIe power. So just kind of weird stuff. We've got, you know, a bunch of cables that are pretty loose, pretty slack here, not routed in an ideal way. So that will definitely be taken care of. Another glaring issue physically is the fact that he's got this AIO zip tied. Yeah, it's zip tied to the top of the case. I'm not sure how well you're gonna be able to see this on camera, but he actually has this radiator screwed in at 2 corners up top and then zip tied around the other 2 corners. And this is actually a pretty clever solution because his RAM clearance was preventing him from mounting the radiator where you would otherwise, you know, properly mount it in this Corsair case. So what I might end up doing is moving this rad assembly to the front and rotating these fans to be set to intake. So we'll have 3 intake fans, and then I'll move these black fans to the top and rear. Those will be set to exhaust. So 3 intake, 3 exhaust, so we'll still be balanced on that side of it. The other 2 things I'm sure people are probably thinking about by this point, you know, having a front mounted radiator, oh, you're gonna totally compromise your graphics card temperatures. That is totally not true. I'm not sure why people think that you're gonna get like a 10 or 15 degrees Celsius bump in GPU temperatures, all because you moved your radiator to the front. As long as you're evacuating air effectively, and in this case you can definitely do that, temperatures will be fine. The other concern people have when you are front mounting a radiator is that, oh, you're gonna kill your pump. I don't know why. All those people watch 1 or 2 videos and totally take things out of context. They don't draw the same conclusions as even the video creator himself, and they assume that because the barbs are up top and the block is situated fairly high, that the block is just gonna pull in tons of air bubbles and the Asetek pump's gonna die. That is simply not true. If the barbs are situated higher than the pump itself, I mean, this is simple fluid dynamics here. You're not gonna be able to push with a weak pump air that is lighter than water downward into the pump over and over. Most of the air will settle at the top of the radiator, and if the loop is filled properly, that shouldn't be a problem. Shouldn't even cause any sound issues, to be frank. But anyway, with those disclaimers out of the way, because I feel like I have to address that every time I talk about radiator positioning nowadays, and the mentioning of the cable management that definitely needs to be addressed, let's get into the email that I received from the owner. He was describing in detail what he was experiencing, and there's yeah, quite a bit to go through. The software side's a bit of a mess. So he says he just built his first ever PC. Remember, this is a fairly new rig, maybe a week or 2 old, and went all out. He got an RTX 3090 in here, I believe an R9 5900X, either 16 or 32 gigs of DDR4, 2 DIMMs there. He has an RM850X power supply, really nice Corsair case, AIO, right? The works. You know, a very powerful gaming PC. The RTX 3090 is probably a bit overkill, but he said he bought this, I think, from Best Buy, so he probably didn't have much to choose from, and if he bought it at around MSRP, then it's really not that terrible of a deal, and seen in the context of what people are willing to pay on eBay. Anyway, he says he loaded up WZ, and boom, it crashed. WZ's Warzone, by the way. He said WZ in there, but yeah, COD Warzone crashed his system, caused a blue screen of death, and the blue screen said, the error code was WHEA uncorrectable error. Okay, and I've personally seen this before. It's not an error you want to see. He says that what he did was what most people would do. He restarted the system, but it kept popping up. And I asked him how frequently it was popping up. He said it was like every 10 or 15 seconds from there on after. So it wasn't like it was just gaming that was bringing up the blue screen of death. It was just trying to boot into Windows. It would cut straight to a blue screen and give him that same WHEA error. He searched for ways to fix it, tried a bunch of things, and now he can't even load up Windows on his SSD. He says the SSD won't even show up as a boot device in his BIOS. That's a big problem, yeah. So we're gonna work our magic, I hope, and get this thing working again. First thing we need to do is plug it in and attempt to replicate the things he's describing in the email. And with everything now connected, got my little mini display here. Let's see what we see. Power on. Okay, everything lights up, that looks good. Let's see if we get a post. Okay, we've got a post. It says USB devices detected, 0, no keyboard detected, 16 gigs of RAM detected. All right, so it'll either kick us into the BIOS or into the boot device. Okay, yeah, so it went straight to BIOS. That probably indicates that it doesn't detect a boot device anymore. So let's navigate over here to the boot tab, and nada, I am not seeing, yeah, I'm not seeing a boot drive at all. There's literally no option here, like for any drive to be booted into. I can check some of his settings in here just to see, maybe he's got like, you know, yeah, sometimes it's like legacy mode only, but all of this looks, okay, wait, this might be something. Let's try UEFI only. And I believe his only storage drive here is it's an NVMe drive, so that's PCIe. And we're gonna try UEFI now. And we'll save changes and reset, see if that does anything. So I have tried a bunch of different settings here. I have enabled and disabled CSM. Usually you just leave this enabled, it'll be fine. I have also gone into secure boot here. This was set to other OS, and yeah, you can see here, native NVMe driver support enabled. He does have an NVMe connected, and we're still not getting, yeah, we're not booting into a bootable volume, which is interesting. Now we can actually see the drive in the NVMe configuration tab. It's very clearly a Sabrent Rocket 4.0, 1 terabyte. I'm assuming 4.0 stands for PCIe 4.0, but you can see right here where it says total size 0.0 gigabytes. That's a bit sus because it says right above it that it's a 1 terabyte drive. So a couple other things we're gonna try. First off, I'm gonna try enabling PCIe 3.0 and bypassing 4.0, which, yeah, it's rare that that causes an issue, especially with storage drives, but I'm gonna try it nonetheless just to rule out that being an issue, and that could be associated with the motherboard, who knows, or potentially the BIOS revision that it is running. The other thing I'm going to try is the obvious resetting the Cmos. If there is some setting in here that I am not finding that is set to the wrong thing, that could prevent the drive from being detected in the way that it needs to be detected. I don't think that would fix the issue, but it's so simple and so quick that it doesn't make sense to not do it. And neither of those things worked. Not that I am all that surprised again. So what I decided to do was connect my bootable USB, which has Windows Media Creation Tool loaded into it. All we have to do is connect that to the PC, and when we turn it on, the system automatically boots into that bootable media, brings us to this page here where we can install a Windows operating system onto any other connected drive. The drive shows up. That's a good thing, but what it shows next to the drive is not a good thing. So this is the drive. First off, concerning that he said he already had an operating system on here, was literally playing Warzone on this drive, and all it says is unallocated space. That's no good, so something happened to the volumes he created on here, the different partitions. And then also, total size 0.0 megabytes, free space 0.0. Again, this is a 1 terabyte Sabrent PCIe 4.0 drive. This right here, my friends, is an indication that this drive is almost certainly dead. Now, to be clear and upfront, a lot of NVMEs I've worked with have been fine over the years, including some more recent PCIe 4.0 drives. It is very strange that only after a week or two of owning this system and building it himself, the drive suddenly crapped its pants. And all he was doing was playing Warzone. It's not like you're heavily stressing anything in this drive. You could do a lot more synthetically to put a heavier load on these. And you know, it's not like he's rewriting data over and over or anything like that. The drive just kicked the can. And again, I can't speak to Sabrent's track record, but it is definitely odd for it to die so quickly. So the next obvious step will be to swap his drive out for one that works. Now, I'm not sure if I have a PCIe 4.0 drive in there. The good thing though about his system is that because it is so new and he bought all these parts pretty much separately on either Amazon or in store like Best Buy, he can claim a warranty on these devices. So I'm going to take that Sabrin drive out and I'm going to tell him to attempt to send it back for a refund. If he doesn't have the original box, which is one of the reasons why I always tell you guys to keep your boxes, especially if you expect something to die within the first year or so. If you keep the box, it's a very simple return process, assuming it is warranted or assuming you have e-retailer like Amazon fulfilling things. But if you don't have the box, then you might need to go through the manufacturer directly, and that could take a lot more time. Now what I have here is a Corsair Mp600. This is a 1 terabyte PCIe 4.0 NVMe, very similar to the Sabrin drive in his build. I think that those speeds in the Sabrin are a bit faster than these. Nonetheless, it's going to be as close as we can get, at least with the parts that I have on hand, to a one-to-one trade here. And I know this one works because I've used it in previous builds. So what I'm going to do is reformat it. We're going to connect this to his motherboard and then reinstall Windows, a fresh copy on this. So let's get this old drive out of here. I believe it is in the uppermost M.2 slot. And there she is, what I believe to be a dead NVMe drive. So this one's it's looking a bit jank. This is like a really thin copper sheet, it looks like, and I'm not sure why it's like totally bent out of shape. It shouldn't be like that, it should be flush. But we can take a look here at the drive itself, and I don't really see any obvious issues. It could just come down to a dead controller or something, but I'm going to actually reconnect this into the lower M.2 slot in his board once we get the new one I'm giving him installed. And we're going to see if any software will detect this drive, and if so, what it says is wrong with it. It might just say that, the data is corrupt, etc. But I just want to see if we can get any kind of diagnosis via software with this thing. Now we'll get the new drive connected. I'm not going to bother securing it just yet because, again, I do want to run some tests with that Sabrin drive just to see what is wrong. So let that hang there, and then we'll reconnect the old drive into the lower slot. Now let's fire her back up, make sure that she posts, and that we boot into Windows. I believe there is, again, an operating system on this new drive from one of my old builds. So we'll confirm that. I expect everything will work though. Now I think that the drive was to blame. And we're still, again, the reason why I connected to this old Sabrin drive is I want to make sure, I want to confirm that it is a hardware issue associated with the drive specifically and not a software issue. I've never really seen it to where you could totally brick a drive by having a corrupt operating system. There's something associated with the software side of it, but I do want to confirm that up front because these Sabrin drives are not cheap, right? And if we can get by with fixing whatever is wrong with it and reinstalling it, that would be best. So I think we're good now. It was like reconfiguring drivers from the old drive that I put in there. Yep, looking much better now. And then we'll hop into Disk Manager, see if we can see any partitions in that old drive. I don't expect that we'll be able to. And then we'll also download a kind of like disk integrity checker. So you can see here it's asking for us to initialize disk 1. A disk 0, you can see up here, is the one that I gave him. That's the Mp600. Again, already has an operating system on it. But it says for whatever reason, his old disk that did have an operating system on it needs to be initialized. So I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just it's not already good to go. We're gonna click OK here and see, yeah, see the parameter is incorrect. Something big is wrong with this drive. I think it's hardware related. And we're here in Passmark's disk checker, and you can see that yeah, pretty much no activity on this drive. Disk geometry is pretty much null. We actually do have an OK status here, so it's weird. It's like part of the controller is communicating properly to the computer, but the remainder of the drive is not. And then you can see this is our Mp600, the one that I gave him. This is what a healthy drive should look like here. And we don't have any of this activity on the Sabrin. Part of it's because we can't initialize it, right? We can't get it working in Disk Manager, but I mean, there's nothing I can do here. Whenever I try to initialize it, it says it's not possible. And that's why I believe this drive is toast. No matter what I try to do in software, I cannot get this thing configured properly. I can't get it to even detect that it previously had partitions installed, and I cannot initialize it in an otherwise fully functional operating system. Oddly enough, when I took this thing out, right after powering the system down, it was very, very hot to the touch. It wasn't being used though. The Mp600 in here that did have the operating system on it that we were showing on screen is nowhere near this hot. I almost couldn't pick it up. It was so scalding. So I'm not sure if that's part of the reason why it's not working, but yeah, just odd all around to see a drive like this, a relatively new drive, fail. At least that's what I think happened. So what we're gonna do now, obviously we're gonna reconnect these little covers for both drive bays, and then we're going to clean up cable management, get this thing looking nice and spiffy. I'm going to rerun several of these cables, including this 8-pin EPS, and this 8-pin leading to the graphics card. I'm gonna push this under here. There's also, yeah, there's a few cables just like running around the side here. We're gonna run these behind the motherboard tray to keep them mostly out of sight. We're also going to relocate this rather sketchily mounted radiator. This should just, wow, yeah, it was a really tight fit with those Corsair DOM plats. I'm surprised he even got it in here. Let's remove this CPU block. I'll be sure to repaste them as well. Let's swap these fans around. And now that everything's been essentially stripped down, we've got the 8-pin EPS rerouted behind the motherboard tray, so no longer awkwardly kind of trailing in front of the graphics card here. I'm also gonna upgrade him to a 360mm AIO from Corsair. So still the same brand, still the same RGB capabilities, but this is a 360mm white Elite Capellix AIO. So a little different. RGB, in my opinion, looks a little better in that AIO, and it's just been sitting in my closet, so I'd like to upgrade him with that. And we'll still have the white contrast for that cooler. Everything else is pretty much black with the exception of the cables. I like that he went with something that was a little less obvious. You know, he could have gone with the plain white or plain black sleeved cables here, but the light blue is actually a nice touch. The smaller cables down below are routed very cleanly this time around, and now it's time to install the AIO. And here we are with the right side looking much cleaner than it was before. I don't think I have a shot of that. I just realized halfway through that I didn't even show you guys what the back of this looked like. I mean, it was okay, but there are tons of little RGB cables and things running from these fans. Remember, there's 6 of them, plus we've got this large controller to include. So whenever you have things like that, smaller peripherals to account for, it becomes a lot more difficult to cable manage, but this Corsair case works out just fine, and we used a lot of the little zip tie or tie strap points to keep things clean, running mostly along the edges and down this center channel here. So we're gonna get the right side panel back on, we'll turn it around, attempt to power it on, make sure everything is plugged in correctly, and then we'll install Windows to finish things off. So now that this drive I gave him is the only one connected and it has been formatted, we can install Windows on it. We'll click next. And here we go. And while this is happening, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a quick dusting just to make it look good as new. I mean, it is basically a new PC build. Looking good. And we've activated this copy with an OEM Pro key from VIP CD key. So he is now pretty much ready to go. Take care of drivers, take care of any RGB software you want to install, and your system is as good as new. Now, unfortunately, he does need to reinstall his games. He had everything loaded on a single drive, and what that means is that if that drive fails and you have no physical backup, you're gonna have to reinstall everything from scratch. And we all know that COD Warzone is a fairly large game, a bit excessive if you ask me. So that's probably gonna take him a little bit, but at least his system is working again. So I hope you enjoyed watching this troubleshooting process play out. These are, again, always fun because they're more like puzzles. You know, you never really know what you're gonna get when one of these comes in. You have an idea of where to start based on the symptoms they describe, but I was pretty shocked to find out that this was a dead drive. I was really just expecting it to be a corrupt operating system, something we could easily fix with a fresh Windows install, which we had to do anyway with our bootable media, but I didn't expect the NVMe drive to be bricked. At least that's what I've concluded based on the symptoms I've seen. It's very rare. It's not something you run into a lot, especially with newer drives, a drive that you just bought. It could be an older generation of drive, but if it's relatively new and hasn't been written over many times, those usually don't fail right out of the box. So it's good that we caught it early. At least it's within the warranty window, the return window, more than likely. So I'll be sure to give it back to him so that he can try to get his money back. But we did nonetheless fix the issue with swapping this out with another drive, an Mp600. Still very fast, still Gen 4 speeds that he can rock with this 5900X. Other things we addressed with this viewer's build, we fixed the cable management big time. I mean, again, we had cables running in front of the graphics card, the PCIe cables being split, one going through the radiator cutout and the other one going through the rubber grommet here on top of the basement. Just looked a bit strange. A lot of the smaller cables being wrapped around in ways that I really wasn't a fan of. So we tried to keep this as minimalistic as possible, keep the smaller cables especially out of the way. Nobody wants to see those, and then really bring an emphasis to the clean-cut blue cables that he's got here. Kind of difficult to see the 8-pin plus the 4-pin up top being crunched a bit by these 120mm fans. The 24-pin though looking really fresh, and unfortunately, thanks to this little adapter that's included with the Founders Edition 30 series cards, we can't see the two 8-pin blue custom cables. But everything else, yeah, looking mighty fine if you ask me. With that, if you guys enjoyed this one, be sure to let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. You can also consider subscribing if you have not already. If that red button is unclicked, be sure to click that. That would go a long way. Thank you for that support. Also, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you want to see next. We are coming up at the we're coming up on the end here of this first season of Fix or Flop, and I've got to say, I'm kind of shocked by how many people are having issues in the Orlando, Florida area. It's something that in a way I'm grateful for. Obviously, I don't want to wish ill will towards people's builds, but I'm thankful that people are giving me a chance to fix their rigs, especially rigs like these that are just built maybe a week or two after they start using them, they break. That's no good. I mean, you don't want to find out after spending several $1,000s on a build that potentially something you did resulted in it no longer working at all. Like this owner said, he couldn't even get into Windows. It kept booting him into the BIOS. What's up with that? It was working just fine a day ago. Well, that's what I'm here for, to alleviate your concerns and hopefully diagnose the issue correctly. I think we did so here. That's all for this one. Thank you for watching. My name is Greg. Thanks for troubleshooting with me.